What's up, guys? Lewi here. Welcome back to the channel. Today, I've got a very special guest on the channel. I cannot wait for you guys to watch this collaboration interview. Kyle Mark is an agent in Vancouver who specializes in luxury, and his use of AI inside of what he does in his business is outstanding and second to none in terms of agents who are actually producing at the highest levels and using artificial intelligence in their business. He's got a wild story about being in the fire service, a catastrophic injury, and how he kind of clawed his way back through COVID to becoming a realtor and being one of the most regarded luxury agents in Vancouver. So I really love having him on. I love Kyle. He's a really good friend now, and I hope you enjoy this interview too. So if you want to get in touch with Kyle, follow him. You can check out all the links below in the description. But until then, check out the video. All right, here we go. What is up, brother? Kyle, what's happening, man?
Super excited to jump on here with you a day after Thanksgiving. So you're back to it just after a holiday. So happy to be here.
Day after Thanksgiving for these fine Americans like myself, but
Absolutely.
not up in your world. Just another Thursday.
Just another Thursday. We're thankful a month earlier than you guys, which is kind of par for the course.
You're always thinking you're better than us, huh? All right, I get it. I get it. No big deal. Well, hey, I'm excited to get you on today and jam out. Man, how long have we been working together now? A year and a
February will
half?
be 2 years.
2 years in
So coming up to
February?
2 years
Wow.
now. It's gone by quick.
Man, yeah, that's really cool, man. Well, it's been awesome, and like I was excited to get on this conversation just because in terms of family dynamics, you and I are pretty similar. Because we run these businesses, but there's kind of a lot that you and I jam out on a lot, including obviously time management for like how to manage a big business, but also your family, scaling the business, using AI to help with this stuff. So there's a lot to jam out on today. So maybe for the sake of the audience, for anyone who hasn't quite got to know you yet, maybe just give us a kind of bird's eye view of like your past, what brought you into this, and kind of where you're at now.
Yeah, so I definitely had an interesting path to real estate. Right before, or essentially right when I got licensed as a realtor, I got hired a couple days later as a firefighter. So even though I'm technically, 7 years as a licensed agent, I'm really only in my third year as a full-time agent because I got in with the fire department, put that on the back seat. There it was just way too much going on with that. Did a couple deals, but what my biggest problem was, I when I came out of it, had a back injury which pushed me out of the fire department because I didn't get that medical clearance. But when I came out of it and I went to a brokerage to start working in full-time work, they didn't want to consider me a new agent. So I didn't get into a lot of these new mentorship or boot camp type of training. So here I was starting my real estate career. And yes, I was at that time, I think 4 years in the industry, but I haven't done anything, haven't done any learning. And I was just, flying by the seat of my pants. And I was starting to get really frustrated because I came from a blue collar background. I was in trades for 11 years. I was in the fire service for, 6 years, then came into real estate, had no training from university or entrepreneurship. So I got a Tom Ferry coach, was paying like $1,800 a month because I wasn't getting what I needed from my brokerage. And finally, I was just starting to get frustrated. Things weren't progressing the way I wanted to. I knew there was holes in my business. And that's how I, stumbled around you as well as Mike. And then when we jumped onto that call with Mike and then subsequently with you, and Mike pushed me towards you just because of your systems, super similar life space. I was working a lot, not having time with my kids, not having proper time with my wife. And then when I jumped on that call with you and you explained to me, what you offer, how you run things and what you can, mentor and coach me in, it was such like a non-starter for me. After our conversation, I got rid of my brokerage, fired my Tom Ferry coach, and jumped on with you guys immediately because I really desperately needed that help.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's a lot there. A lot. So let me take things back just because I'm interested. So did you get a back injury in the fire department? Was it like in service that happened?
Yeah, so in 2019, I had two pretty bad workplace injuries at two structure fires. So in September, I went to an arson. There was a door that was locked up. And getting into it, I had to like knock down a fence with a sledgehammer to get entry to the door. With that, the fence like fell on the sledgehammer because usually I would just take a sledgehammer and pound down a door to get entry. But I couldn't find the sledgehammer, had my hose, had to go in. So I kicked down the door. That really aggravated, my back, but, finished getting that under control. I went on holidays the next day, had some physio, and it got better. And then about 5 weeks later, so I was at another structure fire. We're looking for fire extension. So for people that aren't aware, once you make entry into a home, you got to open everything up, make sure that there's no more hot spots, get all the gases out, that there's no more fires. So as you're pulling down the ceiling, obviously with all the water that comes in, the drywall gets soaked, the insulation gets soaked. Some of it fell down, fell on my head, on my shoulder, and re-aggravated my back again. I thought it was going to be the same thing, like, oh, a couple weeks I'll get better. But within a couple weeks, I lost full function on my right side. My doctor's like, you need to pull out. Like, this is really, really bad. And then COVID happened, and then everything stopped. So I couldn't get treatment. And then at that time is when I started to think, hey, I need to look at my real estate because I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to get back. I eventually did. I did about like 9 months of rehab, but then I hurt myself again. But it's been a long journey, like 5 years of chronic back pain on copious amounts of nerve blockers, opioids, lost full function, wasn't very present for my kids or my wife because of the physical ailments I had. So within that time, I'm trying to learn to be an entrepreneur, run a business, run a family, and then deal with this pain. So it's been interesting for sure. And then didn't
Yeah.
ultimately, I got a back surgery last year. It didn't go, really well. I didn't get clearance to come back to the fire department, and that's where things are now.
So why real estate? What put you into that from the fire? Like, was it you just saw it happening, or opportunistic, or what paved the way for that?
Yeah, I think with when you don't take high school seriously, when you don't, go to university and you don't have things on the back end, you're really limited with what you can do. And that's why when I was 11 years in construction, I knew real estate quite well. I did personal deals outside of it. My mom actually was a realtor as well. So knew some of the ins and outs, did some pre-sales and condo purchases for myself while I was outside of it. And then when I
Mm.
was going through construction, I didn't want to do this anymore. There was no future. It's very competitive up here to get into the fire department. It took 4 years for me to get in. But on the meantime, I didn't want to go back to construction. So I said, hey, I love building construction. I understand how things are built. I've been involved with real estate transactions. Again, very low bar entry, unlimited earning potential. So I went in, did my licensing, all that while I was trying to get on the fire department. And then things came together essentially at the same time.
Hmm. Man, very cool. That's really, yeah, that's cool because I could have gone a whole nother direction, man. Like if you weren't mentally there, those injuries plus COVID, like that could have been a disaster. So, man, props to you for that. That's crazy. Well, let me ask you this because this is something I've always been interested in with you, the luxury part of things. So, when Mike was like, "Listen, you need to talk to this guy," I was like, "Cool." I looked him up on Instagram. I was like, "Oh, this guy's suave." I was like, "Look at this guy strolling about the city with his like turtlenecks on and stuff like that," and I was like, "What is happening here?" And then when we got together, I was like, "Oh, he's just one of the guys." But like, what I guess here's is the thing for me. When my brain goes to firefighter, but then I see you on Instagram, they don't correlate with me. I don't know
Mm.
what that is. Maybe I'm just looking at the wrong calendars. But it's one of those things where it's like how have you always kind of been interested in that side of kind of life and lifestyle and stuff, or like what took you to there? Because I guess most people when they transition from like a service from like fire, police, military, they tend to target that demographic. Like, okay, well, if I'm ex army, I'm gonna set up a program for army and veterans and stuff like that. What was that thought process, or did you just naturally flow into that? Where'd that come from?
I think for me, when I hurt my back and I was sitting home during COVID and looking up branding and what I wanted to do with my real estate, I knew that there's a couple of strategies with that. I'm a very black and white person too. It's 100% in, 100% out. I come from like next year I'm going to be 10 years clean and sober. So I come from an addictive past. So with me, when you have those addictive personalities, you want the rush of the biggest and the best. And so for me, luxury real estate was the biggest and the best when it
Mm,
came to that environment, dealing with, very high stakes, dealing with a lot of money, dealing with clients that are going to have massive amounts of expectations. I love marketing, I love branding, and for me, I wanted to be able to do all these things, but if I'm doing entry level condos, it's not going to be as fun for me. I want to go through homes that excite me. I was in construction for a long time. I want to be with high quality builds. And then I also know that with the family, higher end price points, higher end commissions, you don't have to do as much transactions. Being a family
mm,
guy, it worked, in a multiple of different levels for me. And coming out of the fire service, where you're going to the worst day of someone's life every day, multiple times a day, doing big things, dealing with the biggest thing you can have on this world when it talks about life and death. So
mm,
coming outside of that and being involved, I wanted to be in tune with something that was going to feed, that kind of adrenaline side that I'd
mm.
been working in for the last little bit.
Man, that's fascinating. So you kind of took that addictive personality, which I have too, and we've talked about this before, but it typically addictive personalities typically go to the negative, but you were able to kind of flip that around and take it to a positive place. That's really cool, man. You know what's funny with these interviews and when I talk to people, like I've known you for 2 years, like we've never talked about this stuff
Yeah.
before. I love it. Um, that's really cool, man. I love that angle of it. So talk me through the process then. So you're in the fire or you come out of fire, COVID's happening, like where do you go? Because this is what people want to know and kind of need to start understanding is like one, like getting started in the business. Two is like you were talking about with your family, building a business while being able to maintain your family. And three, like breaking into like a luxury space. Like how did you do that? Like what was the process for you to go through that and like get your first luxury listing?
Yeah, I don't know how it started. I think about that all the time. I just knew that I needed to have a personal brand. I don't know why that was in my mind. I before I joined with you and joined with EXP at the Wolfpack, I didn't know who Ed Milet was. I didn't even know any entrepreneurial podcast. I didn't read. I didn't do anything. So, but for whatever reason, I knew that I needed to have a good image and a good brand to get into there. So as I was building things out, I took the opportunity, obviously when you're new in the industry, you'll take anything. So it didn't matter for me. And, I'm going to preface this. I'm in Vancouver, so these price points are going to sound high to a lot of listeners out there. But for me, if I was taking the entry level 400,000 or 500,000 one bedroom condo, which in our market is very, very low, I would treat that like a luxury property. So I wanted to get things dialed in with my video, with my marketing, with my branding. And before ChatGPT and all these other things, it took me a lot of time. It took me probably like a year and a half of research of how I wanted to do things, having to write all of the ad copy for like my home buyer and seller guides. But I wanted to use everything as a runway because you never know when you're going to meet someone who could have that big listing for you. And if you don't have everything planned into place, you're going to, completely drop the ball when you go on that listing appointment. So as I started taking these entry level listings and creating it as a luxury experience, because that's what it is for me. Luxury is not necessarily a price point. It's the experience that
Mm.
you're providing your clients. So yeah, I started looking into video at that time. No one really was doing video. If it was, the very cheesy B-roll, or even worse, just the pictures with like the classical music in the background that like fades. So I knew I wanted to get in front of the camera. So I started looking at videographers in my community in Vancouver who were,
Mhm.
doing something different. So I partnered with one, Untitled Marketing. They were expensive, but it's what I wanted to do. Super flashy, get in front of the camera. So I was starting to get in front of the camera back in like 2021. And I think over time, building up my social media, people just started seeing and watching what I was doing. So, most of my 90+% of my business is people reaching out to me. I'm still working on my systems and still needing to be better with my KPIs and things like that. But being a dad, you don't have as much time as you would if you're single. So just by building this personal brand has really helped with people reaching out to me, and then with referrals because they watch what you're doing. And then if you take everything seriously, no matter what the price point is, I know Mike preaches that too, that's how it started turning things over for me to get into higher and higher price points over the last couple of years. So it's only been, like I said, my third full year here doing
That's
things.
crazy.
And but I've had, a lot of traction and had a plan of what I wanted to do to be able to get into that space.
Mm. So luxury is a mindset, really. It's because I think that's the typical stumbling block for people is a price point. And they're always chasing that price point. Whereas if you're making everyone's experience a luxury experience, then it just all roads lead to that eventually. It's yeah, that makes a lot of sense because I feel like a lot of agents, and I'm guilty of this too, is when you have those lower price point, homes, it's like, you do the work, you're diligent with it, you serve your client, but it's like you're not spending $1,000 on, high res, like super cool video and stuff like that. It's more, I'll take my gimbal in with my phone and
Yeah.
film the house, which can work too. But I guess that gives you also more, every time you do a video like that, it gives you more of a portfolio where you can take it to your listing presentations, right? And
100%.
show everyone. Mm-hmm.
That definitely was the way I was performing that because honestly, properties under $1 million, I don't make a lot from. Um, a $500,000 condo, I was paying $1,800 for video and some other things. It was
Dang.
pretty much the exact same videographer and team that I'd use on my high-end stuff. The high-end stuff would get some additional options, but there wasn't a lot of room in those price points. But I knew I was creating this portfolio. So when I got one of my bigger listings last year, that we listed just over 4, ended up selling just under 4. But I had all these ideas and things that I wanted to do, and I said once I got this big one, there's all these other things in terms of digital print marketing, these extra like broker parties, this extra content that I wanted to do. So now that I've have this, when I roll up to some of these bigger homes, it's like this is what I have, this is what I've done, blah 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 blah. Now I have this whole portfolio, and it's just seamless. So it
Mm.
really helps with the brand. But I say this to agents all the time that I talk with. Like, you got to start now. I know it's expensive, but you're just investing in yourself now to create that portfolio, because if you mess up and you can't bring it to the table of you that luxury client that you move forward with, or you meet, that could be like your one entryway into that market. You screw that up and you may not get another chance for that. You don't know, right? So it's just always working on better yourself and research. I'm always looking at what other agents are doing. $1 million listing, as cheesy as it sounds, seeing what they're doing and saying, hey, I want to incorporate a little bit of that. That was a cool idea. How can I incorporate that? And just having all these ideas and not staying stagnant. It's my marketing package from 6 months ago, 12 months ago, 18 months ago is drastically different because I'm always adding and trying to make things better too.
Dude, $1 Million Listing is the first real estate show I ever watched when I was in the States. And this looks pretty good. And then, you get into the industry. And at that time in Denver, I'm like door knocking, $300,000 homes. I'm like, this is what Ryan Serhan said it was going to be. But mind you, Denver now is going crazy. Well, talk to me about this. So the luxury piece of it, one thing I know about you is like you were saying, you're always continuously improving. You're reading books now. You're watching other competitors. You're doing all this work. You're always up to something. How does family life fit in here? Like, how have you been able to put a system into place where you can scale like this? Because here's the deal: luxury clients aren't always necessarily the easiest ones to deal with, right? Like, there's a lot of expectations. There's a lot up front where they want you to act and work in a certain way. And I feel like that's a trap that people fall into, is they fall into the trap of having to be on standby 24/7. The client comes first above everything. So with you, with two young kids, right? Three,
Yep,
two,
yep.
two young kids.
Two.
With your wife and two young kids, like what does that look like for you? How have you managed to implement some kind of system, calendar, schedule into this luxury life?
Yeah, I mean, it's still definitely a work in progress. I'm still chipping away at those things in terms of like my standards and my time, because you start running around and things get a little bit crazy. I also work from home. I'm in the basement of my home. I can actually hear my kids screaming. So that makes it difficult too, because you have that start and stop. And I know on our last call, you said that once you're distracted, it takes about 22 minutes to get back into your objective that you're working in. So I have a lot of those. So I'm still working on that, but dialing everything out through like a system through Notion, having my checklist, knowing what to do. Because with these clients, communication is so important. And then once you offer like a pretty robust marketing package, you need to be able to communicate that effectively to your clients. So a lot of spreadsheets, having everything dialed in a sequential order has really helped that. The last, I don't know, 6 months, I've been taking, Thursdays off, which was a hard decision for me, just to spend it with my kids. The weekends can be a write-off with showings, but it's important still to have that time. The phone is still an issue, and you need to do a better job of just locking that away. But if you don't, I went through, the last couple of years, multiple areas of burnout throughout the year because you're just like working, staying up, waking up, you're thinking about it all the time. And then you start as I mean, you went through it yourself, you start going crazy, right?
Yeah.
Anxious, anxiety. And then if you start falling out of love, and I know when I start falling out of love of what I'm doing, that I need to take a step back. I need to take a break.
Yeah, 100%, man. Yeah, it's dude, the phone is still a struggle. The phone's always a struggle. Yeah, I was talking to someone yesterday just at the Thanksgiving dinner about this, that it's like these companies have like clinical psychologists and the most intelligent designers of all time in their business to program these things to be addictive for us. So we're on them and use them all the time. So I actually recently bought this Apple Watch thing here. I've never really loved these watches, but the only notifications I have now are calls and texts. And on Do Not Disturb, the only people who can get through is my wife and my kids' school. So now I'm trying to just leave my phone away, like just leave it and just have this, because you can't go on Instagram and scroll around on this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest thing. But yeah, I love that, man. I love the Thursdays off. Now, how hard is that to honor that every week? Like if you're dealing with clients, I'm just thinking about Thursdays in a real estate cycle. That's like the day before, the weekend, which is showings coming up. Like, what made you pick Thursdays, and what have been the challenges in that, or what's been easier than maybe you thought?
Right off the bat, it was quite easy to jump into. As you start getting busier, you do feel that pull to get back into the business. I picked Thursday because Friday, I mean, for showings, it's a very popular time for that. Also, as you get into showings for buyers or open houses for your sellers on a weekend, you still need that Friday to prep for that. So taking a Friday off would have been too detrimental. Thursday felt like a pretty good week in terms of what I had for calls. So so when my daughter goes down for a nap and then my son's off at school around lunch, I usually will quickly jump down into the office, do a little bit to catch up. But I try to on a Wednesday prep everything that I need so I can take Friday off. And then in my schedule A's, we were talking about this recently too, with my clients, I now tell them, these are my working hours. Thursday is a time off day. If it's an emergency, text me. And then at these times after 6 p.m., I'm not answering these calls, and I'll get back to you the next day. And they've been super responsive to that. They understand that I have a family with that. With Vancouver being an international market, sometimes it gets a little bit hairy. I had one seller. There's 3 on title. One lived in Norway, one lived in Melbourne, and one was in Miami. So I had to have to do, it was like 1:30 a.m. was the best time that everybody could get together.
Oh,
Sometimes you'll have like these weird scenarios because I'm in such an international market that you're dealing with people all over the place. But that one was pretty crazy.
how did those
It's
three
with the
people
3
meet?
different
What's the
time
deal with
zones.
that?
Family, and then they just live all over.
Okay, all right,
Live all over the place. Yeah,
man.
yeah.
But isn't that interesting? For the most part, if you set the expectations up front, your clients are actually like, okay, cool, no problem. But that's like a massive fear and this limiting belief that a lot of agents have, that it's like, we have to be on the clock all the time. We have to be the most available of everyone, or we're never going to get the listing. And when I started putting that into place, when I was like, listen, I don't answer my phone before 9. I don't answer my phone after 6 unless it's an emergency. I don't work on Sundays. When you say that up front to the client before you start working with them, it was never an issue. Like, it was never once an issue. There were some things that came up and it was like, cool, hey, I just need to, okay, cool. Because it is what it is. If it's an emergency, it's an emergency. But it was never like a client like, well, this was a problem because you don't work on Sundays, or you don't do. So I feel like when you set boundaries like that, you actually create a higher level of respect with your clients. It's especially what I found. That's what I found for me, because our target demographic was always young families with kids. So they were like, yeah, get it, no big deal. But I think that's something that, I mean, taking a day off like that is so healthy, and it's so good for you, and it's so good for your kids. You know, like
Yeah.
you can't be the guy who's working all the time and never has time for the family, because at the end of it, at the end of the day, whenever it's all said and done, you're never going to look back and be like, man, I wish I
No.
worked an extra day, you know? So
No.
I think that's great, man. All right, last thing I really want to touch on and ask you about is AI. I know you're a big AI nerd. I know we've talked about this before in the past, but in terms of what you do, for either just for luxury or in terms of like time management or building out your systems, I know you use Notion and everything like that. Like, where is AI currently playing a role in your business? And then where do you think this is going to go? Because I have these
Hmm.
conversations all the time with people, and you know, my buddy Phil, well, you know Phil as well, Phil Stringer. He always says, AI's not going to replace you, but an agent who knows how to use AI will. So, what does that look like right now in your business? How did you get interested in that, and what do you think is going to be happening here?
Yeah, I think I started getting, oh man, when would have that been? Probably last year at this time, maybe a little bit earlier, after EXPCon in Vegas, or maybe just before that. Joining the group at the Wolfpack, because, and that was one of the reasons why I joined, because it's mostly American based, and you guys are so far ahead of what we are up here in
No
Canada.
big deal.
And this, yeah, not a big deal. So I'll give you that
Apart,
one.
apart from
Um,
gratitude, apart from gratitude, everything else we're ahead of the curve.
No, exactly. But it was because of, I mean, I felt like I needed a strategic advantage over my competitors, and AI was that for me, especially in terms of pushing out content. Social media is a big driver for me. It was taking forever to write proper, hooks. I wasn't doing blog content. My newsletters were taking me a lot of time. Now having everything sorted, I put out a newsletter yesterday. It takes me less than 5 minutes, super
Mm,
easy. There's a lot of training on the back end, creating that avatar so it speaks like me, it knows exactly what to do. But once you have everything dialed, you can create a blog in 2 minutes. You can posting it and as you automate everything. But it's been so in terms of ad copy is really important. Being able to put stuff forward for your listing descriptions, your property brochures, and for me, because I can get agitated a lot. It helps me with my email. So when I'm frustrated with an agent or maybe with a client, it allows me to, have some free therapy where I can type what I want to say, and then it, rewrites it back to me. But it's powerful because once you create, these avatars and these coaches within ChatGPT, it knows everything from where I've been as a kid all the way to now. I upload my disc profile when I have conversations with agents or clients. I can put in some of that correspondence, and then ChatGPT knows that disc profile. So when I start
mm,
communicating with people, it's super powerful because I can write emails that are going to work very, very well in communicating hard things, price reductions, or maybe showings aren't going well. How can we communicate in a great manner?
mm,
Even when I was, role playing, you can role play with your ChatGPT certain scenarios. You can upload emails, or, if something didn't go right with your business, and just asking for advice on how to always improve. That's been a huge game changer as well.
yeah, I feel like that's one of the most interesting and fascinating things that I'm seeing right now is the communication piece. I was talking with our buddy Adam the other day, and we are just talking about that whole profile association assessment that you can take and go through, but then you can use a tool like Crystal Knows and pull someone's disc profile and pull their personality, and then put it into ChatGPT and have them correspond in the way that they would prefer to hear. It's wild. We just did it for our
Yeah.
team. So my assistant and my VAs had them all take a personality test, and I know mine. So now, I'm trying to train on it manually so I understand it. But if I need to send out clear instructions or expectations or something that didn't work right, I can again write it out like you're saying, even like in a Slack message, throw it into ChatGPT and be like, "Hey, write that so it hits home with a high D, and it will write it out differently." And it's, dude,
Yeah.
it's wild. It's absolutely nuts.
Well, it's crazy because you can even from a couple emails, if you put that in, it can find someone's disc profile just in a couple emails. And because I'm extremely, because of my personality, I'm so high D, so high I, like in the 90s, and then completely in like single digits on the other end. So I can, for me, I don't feel like I'm domineering, but I know for myself, I can sometimes be a little bit too overbearing and domineering for people. So I need to
You
massage
never,
things.
never.
Massage things a little bit, but it just helps so much in communication, with those, especially with those harder conversations, with that. And then another one that I like, Notebook LM, which has been super helpful in our province. There's been so many changes to tenancies. There's like 100+ page PDF. And because so many investors are now wanting to get out of the market and there's so many changes that the province has done, instead of having to respond and research and like find all these answers, you can upload a document into this. Have you used Notebook LM before?
I haven't used it, but I've heard about it a few times now from a various few people.
But yeah, so it instead of like with ChatGPT, because you do need that experience because it does hallucinate. I feel like it's not as good as it was last year, and you need to be able to spot. And if you don't, you're down the river. But Notebook LM, you can, for example, a residential tenancy doc or an inspection report, you upload it. It's only pulling information from there. It's not sourcing anything out from online, so it can't have a reason to hallucinate. And then you can type questions. So my clients are like, well, what happens with this tenancy? What happens with this? Instead of having to go back and forth, you send them this profile that you've made within Notebook LM, and then they can start to have conversations and ask it and find anything in there and even say, what should I do in this scenario? What should I do in this scenario? Boom. Or, you look like a rock star, you get an answer right away and give it back to them. So
Mhm.
that's super powerful too. That's a new
Yeah,
one that I've
so
been using.
HOA docs, like everything like that, like those things you have to comb through for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, yeah.
You can pull them out. Okay, I'm gonna need
I
to.
like city regulations for zoning,
Oh,
if there's, you can just put that in and they'll just pull stuff from there and you'll get an answer right away instead of searching for it.
but I mean that's the thing for someone like you working in an international market. Someone from China reaches out and like they're wanting to know in detail, like okay, in this city, what's the permits for this? How do I need to do that? Like you can literally pull those answers in in a few seconds when you
Yeah,
have all those
yeah.
documents in place. So researching all your city's documents, just pulling everything off the city's website and just throwing it in there, so you have all the answers at the touch of a button. Man, it's wild, dude.
Yeah, yeah.
It's crazy. I don't know what's going to happen, but we'll ride it until it attacks us. That's the way
Yeah,
I'm looking at
exactly.
it.
Well, we'll go over to Adam's house. He knows how to talk to them.
Yeah, hopefully Canada's ahead of the curve and
Yeah,
the
there
robots
you
invade
go.
Canada first, and then come here to the US. um, so the team you're running, the people who are partnering with you now, are they what's this looking like for you? Because obviously we kind of attract our tribe, and obviously there's been a lot of people partnered with you and myself and Mike inside of the Wolf Pack. Um, where are they going with things? Do you find agents who are looking to get into luxury, or agents who are like looking more for AI or branding, marketing? Like, because a lot of people see you, and obviously they want to partner with you and figure out all the stuff that you're doing. So what's the main thing you think that the agents that partner with you are taking away and taking value into their business?
I think the big one is just the marketing aspect, the social media aspect of things. I'm quite active on my social, so I think that's what starts a lot of the conversations. With that, being productive obviously helps, and then there, just a lot of mentorship and guidance when it comes to branding, AI, things of that nature, and then just the training as a whole that our group provides. I think that's a huge intangible for things as well. Being able to have that back end of training resources for whatever. But for myself, a lot of, AI setting up those avatars, helping with branding, with marketing, and just being able to, mentor in, sensitive positions too. I've have a lot of life experience through a lot of different things. So I don't really get stressed, right? It's like I deal with, I was dealing with people who die all the time. So, a real estate transaction that goes sideways or someone talks to me in a bad, like it just goes off my back. So being able
Yeah.
to, try to install like confidence within people and confidence within yourself to be able to, have those conversations and to be able to build the business that you want. But marketing, branding, and AI, those are definitely my three babies.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that, man. I love that. Well, guys, if you're watching this, obviously Kyle's all his details are below in the description. You can reach out. Obviously, follow him on Instagram. If you want a blueprint on how to market yourself, go on his Instagram, watch it. His YouTube is there as well. There's also a Calendly link as well. If you want to talk further and look at partnering with us and see what that looks like inside of the Wolfpack and Wolfpack Elevation, you'll be able to see what that looks like in terms of support from Kyle, myself, Mike Sherrard, Connor, and all the way up the ladder. We cover a whole range of aspects in terms of trainings. So if you want more information on that, there's a Calendly link below that you can get more info on. So at the time of filming this, we're in November 29th of 2024, which is crazy.
Yeah.
For you, Kyle, 2025, like 2024 has been a crazy year. You know, obviously you're in Canada, in the States, you know, with an R settlement and everything that's going on here, it's been a little wild. But what do you see in 2025 for agents who are maybe either getting into the business or had a real rough year? Like, what do you see coming? What do you see coming down the line? How do you think we can take advantage of this season that we're going into right now?
I think right now, the end of Q4 is going to be very, very important, and the beginning of Q1 for 2025. I think 2025 is going to be a good market. Depending on where you sit on the political spectrum, doesn't really matter. It is what it is. But I think there's going to be some stability down south. Now they know what's going on. We have a federal election in Canada next year. So I think the economy is starting to get better. We've been noticing with these interest rate drops, more consumer confidence. So if we go, and where I think we're going, a busy spring, a good fall, if you're not starting to do your follow-up and getting stuff going now, you are going to miss out on that rush in the spring, because they're going to be going on with people who they're doing the proper follow-up. So new agents, there's some new agents that are going to be partnering with me. I'm trying to get them in, like get it in now, get your systems in now, get everything dialed. Don't wait for January 1st for your goal setting. I know we've done some of that now already. Get that in place, get things going, and continue to brush up on your artificial intelligence, because I echo the same sentiments of Phil. You know, a agent who uses it is so much more efficient, is going to be able to run circles around you. And you have to, whether you like it or not, you need to start putting time in to understand it. So that's why you need to reach out to me. I can help you with some of that learning curve with that, because you can really explode your business. And when times are good, it's going to be exceptionally well for you and your business.
Yeah, for sure. In terms of agents in the field who are operating at a high level and selling a ton of homes, but also learning AI and putting it in their arsenal and using it in a real way, you're at the top of the pile for me, because there's obviously AI coaches out there who do all that, but someone who's real time selling homes and selling luxury homes and using that in the business, you know, I think leaning on you for that is going to be huge. So, Kyle, appreciate your time, man. Thanks so much for hanging out today. I'm sure we'll do more videos in the future here, but from there, I guess, have a fantastic Christmas and all the rest with your family. Are you taking time off Christmas? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, no, for sure. We'll be taking some time off, except my Decembers have always been super, super busy. We have a huge Asian influx, as you're well aware. It's good luck to buy homes in December. So there's a little bit of a push, but yeah, try to take a week off or something like that for sure.
All right. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Appreciate your time. Don't forget to check out Kyle's links below in the description. Instagram, YouTube, book a call, jam out with him, see if AI and the training that all that we provide can help you in your business and get you to where you want to go in 2025. All right, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Okay. Thanks so
Take
much.
care.
Take care.
See ya.
Bye-bye.